Board of Supervisor regular session, October 10th. No, October 12th.
October
Sorry.
12th.
Thank you.
It's all right. Are we on? All right. Good. All right, let's call this regular meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Grandia, roll call.
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Mark Ramey,
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Here. Very good. I would entertain a motion on this morning's agenda.
Make motion, we approve today's agenda.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
Very good. Jake, any communications received?
not to me.
Okay. Board, any communications?
No.
All right, none here. Very good. We'll move on. Public comments. This is the portion of our agenda the public can speak on items not listed on this morning's agenda. The board cannot act on those items, but they could be topics for future Board of Supervisor meetings. Are there any public comments on items not listed on this morning's agenda? Anything online? Anything in the room? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right, I would entertain a motion on this morning's consent agenda.
Make motion, we approve today's consent agenda.
Second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Very good. On to business. First action, discussion item is agreement for lobbying services. We're on the renewal of our lobbying agreement with Skinner and Paschke and Kelly Myers. Discussion, board. Is Kelly on?
I believe so, yes.
Well,
Yes, I'm on.
All right. Hi,
I can
Kelly.
unmute myself.
That's all right. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
All right. Board, any questions? It's Kelly, there's been no material changes from last year, and as far as fees, the same.
These would be the same, yes.
So if you remember, board, we agreed to pay an annual fee of $30,000 for lobbying services. Our thesis for why we entered into this agreement with Kelly and her firm was dissatisfaction over the collective representation we received from ISAC and other organizations like that. And we felt it would be good for the Board of Supervisors to have another set of eyes and ears at the legislature to be able to push forward ideas that we felt important, particularly as we were working on the VA, but there could be other items as well, and to give us some direct feedback on legislative items of importance to us. And I think over the years, Kelly has done a great job in informing the board, talking to us about various issues and initiatives, and working very hard to try to get us dollars that could be applied to various projects within Marion County. So there's my summary. Any discussion, board? Any thoughts on renewal?
Well, I'm in favor of the renewal. I think it's been beneficial to us so far.
Okay, do you, Steve? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Keisha, anything for you?
Nope, I don't have any comments.
Okay, good. Kelly, anything from your perspective? Any, you and I have talked a couple of times. I know you've been in contact with other board members. There are a lot of things that will be coming up in this legislative cycle. But I think if I could summarize, we were able to influence a little bit on the income tax reductions that occurred. We had a great,
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, we had meetings with the Ways and Means Chair in the Senate, and that was really productive. And then what we saw from those conversations and monitoring that legislation, that personal income tax was reduced from, I believe it was at 9 different levels to, I believe it was 4 or 6. So yeah, we had some change there. We're going to still work on the getting that potential RIF money. I'm trying to slot some conversations with the speaker to have further conversations about that and the legislative change that's needed there. Real hopeful that we can accomplish that this year. I mean, sometimes I was hoping we could get that done last year. It was one of my greatest disappointments of last session, but sometimes issues do take a couple years. That's that's not out of the norm. So I'd like to continue to work on that. It's a great honor to represent my home county, and feel blessed and honored to be able to continue to do so.
Great, thank you. I do think this is a little bit of an aside that as a board, we should probably think about a strategy session, Kelly, similar to what we did last year. To maybe from a board perspective, get some initiatives, things that maybe Steve and Keisha are looking at of interest, to be able to talk about those things before the legislative cycle begins. If there's anybody in the room, I know Carla, we always have economic issues going on, but if there's anybody else that has any items they would like Kelly to watch over or give some feedback on during the legislative session, it might be good to get everybody together and talk about that a little bit. And see if there are other items that we're missing that we need attention to. So I will think of a date for that, Renee. Don't let me forget about that. All right. Any other questions or discussion, board?
Nope.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion on this agreement.
Well, I would move that we enter into an agreement with, what was the name of the firm again? Skinner and Paschke?
Yeah, Skinner.
Yeah.
Kelly, is your name on the letterhead or is it just Skinner and Paschke?
It's Skinner and Paschke is the name of the firm.
Okay, so Skinner and Paschke, Steve.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
I move that we enter into an agreement with Skinner and Paschke for lobbying services.
Very good. I'll second that.
Johnner,
Abstain.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye. Very good. Thank you. Next, we have a discussion on Marion County mental health projects. This one, I'll give a little background. Tiffany, are you online? And is Rachel online?
Yep, we're both here.
Okay, good, good. As you know, there was a restructuring of the mental health, a reorganization of the mental health reorganization is the way I'll put it. That's been going on for the last 10 to 11 years. And now the state has taken on more of the funding responsibility, probably all the funding responsibilities. The cross board and the different mental health board, regional boards will stay intact as administrative boards. But now, for all intents and purposes, the plans and the finances and the things that we do have to receive more direct state approval, given the changes that were done to the budget. In connection with that, in the current cross budget, there are some, because as a result of this change, there are spend down provisions in the budget. We have a little over, and Rachel, you'll have to give me the exact number, but we're a little over $4 million currently. And based on the spend down provisions, we would end up giving about 1.9 million back to the state, leaving about 1.1 million for the region to try to spend. I believe it's by the end of the calendar year, Rachel. Or otherwise that would go back to the state as well, to be redistributed to the various regions, our region and other regions, to address this new restructuring. The cross board met and determined that the second segment of money, that 1.1 million, we would try to spend as counties before the expiration date, before the date that the state would have to take over those dollars. The 1.9 is going back to the state. There's nothing we can do about that, and it's too administratively burdensome to try to deal with those dollars. But that 1.1 million, we can. The proposal before the cross board was that each county, we would just divide it by 7. You take 1.1 million divided by 7. Every county gets about $164,000 to be able to figure out if there are mental health projects within their respective counties. And they have to be mental health specific projects. So they have to tie into the law and the way that it's been restructured. Marion County obviously contributes the most to the region, but to say we get the most money back, we'd have to run that by the state, probably isn't going to fly. This way, some of the smaller counties get a shot at taking care of some of their needs. And at a minimum, we get some of those dollars back to address some immediate mental health needs within Marion County. If a county doesn't spend all those dollars will then flow equally to the other counties. So it could be Marion County gets more than 164,000. Let's say another county can only spend 40. So we'll get more of those dollars. So high level, any questions on that summary? Rachel, did I do an okay job?
Yeah, that was great.
Well, thank you. That was great.
That was great.
Better than I thought. All right. Any questions on that overview, Steve?
The $164,000 mark, that is what, this email that Tiffany sent, is that?
Yes,
That's what.
that is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. So I had asked Rachel and Tiffany, who were at that meeting, they're on the board as representatives along with myself, to begin to do some research on projects that we could maybe apply those dollars to. And that was the email you received. I don't know if do we have that project? Tiffany, can you put that on the board? Can we get that on the board?
Can I send it to Jake?
What?
Jake,
Send it to
and
Renee.
then you?
Renee, can you
Or I don't know how to do that.
send it to Lisa. Send it to
Send
Lisa.
it
Is that what the hand was? Is that what the hand was for, Lisa?
to Lisa? Okay, I can do that. Give me just a second.
So send that list, and that way we'll be able to put it on the board. No pressure.
All right. I didn't
So
think
while
about
they're
that.
doing that, just a quick question.
Yeah.
And this maybe is for Rachel or you or somebody, but was there any discussion on that $1 million to contract with like Clive Behavioral Health that truly has a tertiary care facility? Because obviously the Access Center hasn't been working for us as sheriffs on it. Is there a way to contract with the hospital up there that when we have those most acute patients, I mean, we can take them to like Clive Behavioral Health?
So we'll see if
Was
that,
looked at or?
yeah, we'll see if that's on the list. There was nothing specifically looked at yet.
Okay.
So we had our meeting about a week ago where I proposed this. The cross-board members have to get to their respective boards of supervisors and say, what do we have out there that we could spend this on?
Okay.
So it's all right now, what are the list of things that we maybe could do?
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what.
And I would just add to Jason's question, we're working on, it's been a long time, with Clive Behavioral Health contracts, so that would be kind of part of our business as usual. So Mark mentioned our, $4 million plus budget. We, in addition to this money that Mark's talking about, we also have to fully expend our budget this year, to not have additional money to spend down. So yeah, we're hoping to have at some point a contract with Clive. I don't think they're ready to contract with us from the conversations I've had with their person. I don't think they expected the volume that they've experienced so far, so.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Rachel. Can we just make that a priority or try to keep that as a priority? And if I can help with it, I'll definitely help in any way I can. But that's gonna be a push for ISSDA this year is tertiary care, because what we thought we were gonna have with those access centers didn't turn out to be what we needed. So if there's a way that we can contract with them to be able to have that, that'd be great, so.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Go ahead. Keep that on the list, Jason. Thank you.
These access centers, Jason, if they're not working for us, what are they doing?
Well, they alleviate on the back end. I mean, where I say they don't work for us is when we have that most acute patient. The whole goal 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was now, to have a facility, our push for the Iowa Sheriff's and Deputy Association was to have a facility that we could take somebody and get an evaluation. And they, within that first 24 hours, they would see the mental health professionals, know what needs to happen, know where they need to go, if they can be returned back to the community or what. But the problem with it is the access centers won't take anybody that's not voluntary. So when a deputy takes somebody down there for an evaluation, as soon as they walk in the door, the first question is, do you want to be here? If the patient, who doesn't know what's going on in regards to just anything in general, says, no, I don't want to be here, they walk right out the door into the community in Osceola. So the push is that we need a place for those individuals on the corridors, involuntary. If we pick somebody up that's, I mean, truly in a mental health crisis, they get the help they need. And it can't be a voluntary type facility. So then the word tertiary came into play, that we need a tertiary level of care, which is a higher level of care than what the access centers are. And that was our fault, or my fault. I didn't know what the levels of care were. And we thought the access centers were gonna be a tertiary level of care. They're not.
So the whole rub is voluntary and involuntary.
Yes, so the whole issue is, it was so frustrating for our deputies. One of our deputies with a person in crisis got locked out of the access center. We wouldn't let him into the facility because the person didn't want to be there. Well, he's chasing a mentally ill person in a crisis around in Osceola because the facility wouldn't take him. That can't happen.
Right.
We need, I mean, and where, to answer your question, where the access centers have been good is those voluntary people. I mean, if somebody wants to go and get help, it's one more facility that's open, or multiple facilities open across the state to give them that. But it doesn't help in that 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody's wiping feces on the wall that doesn't know what's going on, and we need a place for them to go. And I agree with what Rachel said there. Clive's still in that process of getting their feet underneath them, but I would love to establish something where, yeah, we had guaranteed beds or places that we could take somebody, or a little higher level of payment to be able to take this person. And they would say, because the MCOs and a lot of the insurance aspects, they get paid the same on that voluntary type thing as the involuntary. Well, that involuntary has to be boosted up a little bit and pay for them to have that incentive to want to take them. And if we have money, then we can boost that pay up a little bit and say, hey, we'll add this per patient. It's gonna be better for the patient. It's gonna be better for us. It's gonna be more efficient. I mean, and so working through that contract with them to establish that is, I think, an important step.
And Jason, I'm gonna jump in here on what you said, though. It's not your fault. This is a legislative problem.
Well,
This is where I get to be political, okay? Because I've worked on this for 8 years. And I know you've worked on it just as long. Our legislature will not deal with this holistically. They will not go back and relook at the law that they wrote, which is not clear on this issue. We've dealt with that for how many years? And they won't reopen it. And it would be, instead of doing that, they just reshuffle the dollars, and now the state will take more of the dollars because they have to employ more people in Polk County. So they'll shave more administrative costs off the top and ship our dollars back to us. Now tell me how smart that is. Take our dollars, ship them to Des Moines, and they'll redistribute those dollars to the regions.
Also,
How's that gonna solve anything? It's not. It's gonna be the same debacle it's been for the
well,
last 10 years.
Rachel's doing a very good job.
Rachel's
She's caught in the
Rachel's
middle.
doing a great job. This
She's caught in the middle of
isn't
this.
about any of these people. This is about legislators not doing their job.
Yeah, and we need to keep that pressure on in regards to those acute patients, because those are the ones we have the most calls on. Those are the ones, when it comes to the dispatch side of it, and whether it be Knoxville PD, Pella PD, I mean, are those that maybe 5 or 10% of the population, those most acute, are who we deal with 90% of the time.
But see, they don't even, but the fact that they didn't even think about that, it's like every social services problem we deal with, they don't consider, they segment it so much. Mental health is mental health. Doesn't matter whether you're voluntary or involuntary, it's mental health. And I don't know why they can't fix it. This seems to be easy to me, but,
Well, let me know how I can help with that, Rachel. Thank you.
you guys.
Yes, I will, and it is something that the CEO Collaborative is working on as well. We have a tertiary, we're also calling it psychiatric intensive care work group. Just to that point, we've had a very difficult individual in the Access Center for the last week and a half that no inpatient facility will take. So now we're seeing kind of some of the opposite, where they need inpatient care, but the inpatient won't take it, so the Access Center is holding the individual. So just lots of work to continue to be done.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Do we have it yet?
Hey, Mark, this is Ed. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, I can, Ed, thank you. Go ahead.
Just kind of as a side note to this, I think we also should be mindful of what are we doing with our juveniles involved in the mental health system. Since January 1st of this year, I believe no fewer than 7 mental health facilities or PMICs have closed in the state of Iowa due to staffing and reimbursement rates. So the crisis that we are seeing now full-fledged on adults is coming as it relates to juveniles. And I'm starting to see the inability to place kind of the highest level need children in our state already, whether or not it's Beloit, Ames, places in Sioux City, Annie Whitmire's facility in Davenport. We have lost almost all of our PMIC facilities for juveniles. So to whatever extent this work group or spend down has some ability to assist us in our juvenile problems, that would be greatly appreciated.
I appreciate the comment, and thank you very much. Kelly, this sounds like a topic we need to regroup on at some point and see if there's something we can put forward for the next legislative cycle.
Just thinking that was gonna be a legislative agenda item.
Maybe if Jason, if you and Ed, sometime we can get together and kind of map something out with Kelly.
That'd be great.
Why don't we do that?
Hey, this is Kim.
And Rachel.
Rachel, can you clarify, is this money needing to be spent by end of calendar year or end of fiscal year?
Well, it's a little bit fluid in the sense that we have to spend it by the end of the fiscal year. The calendar year deadline is kind of a self-imposed deadline due to we will officially be under DHS contract beginning January 1st.
Right.
So at that point, DHS can tell us we can no longer amend our budget if.
Right.
Okay.
So that, yeah.
Got it. Wow. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Are we ready with the list?
Not close. They're trying to get it converted.
Okay. Lisa, I don't want to make you go through.
Yeah.
Why don't we move on? Don't worry about it. Tiffany, can you walk us through what you have? And then we'll get copies of it out to everybody, all the interested folks.
Do you, like, how do you want me to go about that? Do you want me just to go through the list? Do you want me to?
So walk down the proposed list that you have right now, since this is totally proposed. We're not going to be taking action on any of these right now until we get this, kind of think through it a little bit. So just so the other supervisors can ask questions, other people can ask questions about different items on that list.
So the first one on the list is teacher-child interaction therapy. And so the Knoxville School District has shown interest in that. It is a comprehensive program that is an adaptation of parent-child interaction therapy for teachers in classroom. It's designed to improve the social, emotional, and behavior competence for students ages 3 to 7 years old. And so it also helps reduce challenging classroom behaviors, which I feel like has been an uptick that we've seen over time. It helps to reduce the physical and verbal aggression, noncompliance, emotional dysregulation, negative teacher-student relationships, and so it helps improve on those things, so those are lessened. Then lose your mind, so
Wait, can I add something on TCIT? Sorry, Tiff.
No, go for it.
So it was offered to every district in the county. Knoxville is the only district that responded saying yes, they want a coach trained in their district. Also included in that cost is training for a social worker from Heartland AEA. That would then be able to serve any district in Marion County if we. I think once the word got out about the training, that more schools would want it. So having someone with the AEA trained would be very helpful in that.
Thanks, Rach. And then the next one is Lose Your Mind. So this is a few days of training. It's a simulation training. And so Kelly Gagey, who is our the Marion County Mental Health Advocate, has proposed this. I have attended it. It's great. So they have, the simulation includes all 5 senses, and it puts you in a situation to where, like, it helps you, it exposes you to someone who in psychosis is experiencing,
And so it helps to have a better understanding of individuals with that chronic mental illness. And so law enforcement, we will be providing, or the idea is to be able to provide that lose your mind training to every law enforcement agency throughout our region. And then the Suicide Coalition, that is for the Marion County Suicide Coalition. We have been, the last few years, put on an event for, initially the first year was for sophomores at the Knoxville School District, and then we had expanded, put another event on this fall last year, and we reached out to sophomores throughout the whole Marion County School District area. And so we're going to be putting on another event next spring. And so it's for materials such as, what's it called, Rachel? The colors.
Real colors.
Real colors. So providing materials for that, for students for that training, and just name badges and things like that. Let's see. Then the Well Works transportation vehicle and box trucks. So they provide supported employment for individuals that we serve as well as others in the Marion County area. And so being able to provide the funding for that would allow for an expansion on with their Well Works and allow individuals who may struggle with transportation to be able to get to the Well Works program. Then the Pella Youth Coalition, the Protect Your Eyes presentation, they're looking to do that both in Knoxville and Pella. And then Dr. Bosworth, her training, Brains of Addiction and Trauma Repair, they're looking to have her as a presenter as well. Let's see, Rachel, did Pleasantville Youth Initiative get back to you yet?
I did receive a communication from them yesterday. And I'm not sure what they're wanting to do, if it'll meet, I'm just not sure about it. They're working in the process of developing, purchasing a building and renovation. So they were asking for support in that. I was hoping less administrative type costs and more, how can we support programming that they might offer? They do offer some things that have a mental health focus. So I'm going to circle back with them and see if we can get something maybe a little bit different proposed from them. So that's why that line item is blank. All the ones that are blank are people we've reached out to but either haven't heard back from yet or don't have a solid proposal that's tied to mental health. I did talk with COC. They were at the point they couldn't identify a project for one-time funding, and that's another difficult thing with these dollars is with one-time funding, we have to be really mindful of what we are funding and make sure that it's going to have an impact.
And one of the other agencies that we reached out to that we'll need to add to the list, Rachel, is First Resources as well. And I have not heard back from them either.
Tiffany, this is Steve.
Yep.
On your list here, you have 2 columns of numbers. What's the relevance of those columns?
So the column that is where the cost is that those are the costs of the project. And then to the right, it's just subtracted from the amount. So at the very top, there's a $164,899.85. So that $23,200 in that first column, if you subtract it, the number next to it is what's left over.
Okay.
And so if you go down on the far right, that's what's left over.
All right. Okay, that makes sense now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. Okay, very good. Board, do you have any questions on any of these items or other items? Again, this is about discussion and trying to put together some kind of a coherent list. I think one of the things to consider, or just remind you, Rachel said it, but I want to focus on it. These are one-time dollars. So we don't want to necessarily get locked into long-term spending on this because we're going to get this once. So is there a project or something that we can take care of that will benefit folks here in Marion County. And then after that, we think about alternate ways of funding. It's not something to get a long-term agreement spun up.
This well-worked transport vehicle, Tiffany, where's it based out of? Would it be based out of?
So right now, well, I mean, the WellWorks program is in Pella. The idea is to be able to transport individuals from Marion County, whether that be from Knoxville, Melcher, wherever, to assist them in getting the transportation to employment.
Okay, all right.
So at this point, I'm not sure where that vehicle would be, if they would want it just to be left in Pella, or if it would be in Knoxville. I don't know that right now, Steve, but that's a good question.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Mark, this is Ed again. I would just remind the board of the concerns associated with the county giving money to nonprofits. We would have to develop a fee for service or a 2080 agreement with these folks. Just looking at some of these, I think it would be very problematic for us to, in essence, donate money to them.
So Ed, I think
part of my question.
But I think one of the things we'd have to think about though is this is really coming from the cross region. It's not coming from the county. Does that nonprofit still apply to the cross region? We're not taking the dollars back to Marion County. They're still flowing through the cross region. So I just want
I understand what you're saying, Mark. I would like some time to do some research before we're committed to doing anything.
And that's fine because a lot of
I don't think we can use a pass through to get around it.
Right.
We have, Ed, and I don't know if this would,
that means.
alleviate the concern, but every entity we give money to is either a fee-for-service contract or a grant contract that we execute with them with deliverables, timelines, everything laid out in it. So, I mean, everyone we contract with is a nonprofit.
Right.
So
That's predominantly the way the mental health structure works right now. So anyway, take a look at it, Ed. I think we're going to be okay because this is a cross-region expenditure, not Marion County. The counties are going to come back and talk about what's specific to their county, but take a look. We have a question. What's the drop dead date for proposals ideas? Great, because I was just going to go to that.
Kim's question.
Who's that?
Kim Dorn.
Kim Dorn. Our next Board of Supervisor meeting, or our second one of the month, is the 26th, which is also the date of our next cross-board meeting. So the drop dead date to come with some ideas is that day, the 26th. So as you look at this list, you think about other items, I would like to get a final list put together that morning, because that will be what we suggest and bring to the cross-board on that afternoon. Okay?
I've got a question.
Yep.
So Tiffany, I saw that you had some of these listed here, like the Pleasantville Youth Initiative. What about like the Freedom for Youth, things like that are in Knoxville? I mean, is everybody contacted or like, yeah, if you have any explanation on that.
Rachel, go ahead.
yeah, so we contacted initially those that we have active contracts with, and then Pella Youth Coalition in Pleasantville Youth Initiative, we contacted them because I contacted them because I knew they had mental health initiatives that they've worked on.
Okay.
So again, we have to tie it back to that mental health. Any entity that wants to propose something that has a mental health focus, you know, I think we'd certainly entertain anything that's going to impact mental health widespread.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Any other questions, Steve, Keisha?
Other than just our plan of action for, you know, we're coming back on the 26th, and we will have another discussion, and then possibly
We're going to
what your
finalize.
recommendation
We're going
would
to
be.
finalize the list on the 26th.
Okay. All right.
And again, if we don't spend 164,000, we don't. But we spend less than that, but that means it'll be redistributed through other counties, and vice versa. So
Or go back
at least
to
that's the proposal. All right.
Sure.
Very good. Tiffany, Rachel, any other comments you'd like to make before I close discussion on this item?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, talking about redispersing, in looking at what some of our other, member counties have, there will likely be, more funds available. So I'll just throw that out there when people are thinking of ideas, so.
So maybe we put it, Rachel, and what we should do is, for those of you who are interested in this topic and putting ideas on the board, we're gonna have probably those that are our highest priority, and then what I'll call the overflow topics, if we get additional dollars. Does that sound fair, Tiffany? Rachel?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, good. Very good. Well, if there's nothing else, entertain a motion to close discussion. Thank you, ladies, for putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make motion to close discussion.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner.
Aye.
Okay, very good, thank you. Important topic, very good. Resolution 2021-74 this is giving the Board of Supervisors authorization to enter a 28E with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Mr. Edwards, is this yours?
It is not.
It is not. Jake,
Actually,
is
I
this
think
yours?
Actually, it's not. I believe that this 2080 was originated through environmental health regarding wells. So I don't know if Bridget's on.
Bridget, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, what do we got?
So this agreement, something that we've been with the DNR for quite some time. It's basically to do with the new permits for wells that are being put into Marion County. The only change that they added to this this agreement was any wells that are going to be put in your contaminated sites, we need to let the DNR know. We don't anticipate that would ever be an issue because we don't plan on letting any wells go in near contaminated sites. So that was the only change to that agreement. There's no concerns from my department. I know Kim reached out to Ed and there was no concerns there. And like I said, no concerns, so.
Okay.
Well, my question is, right, the DNR says it can't be as a contaminated site. Are those contaminated sites identified by the DNR?
Yes, they have a website that we can go to that's where we track all the contaminated sites that they're aware of. Okay. We do our due diligence here when we get a well permit in. We typically, if we have a question about the site, we typically go out to the site, take a look at it, see if there's any historical contamination that the owner knows of. And then the well drillers, they do their due diligence as well. That's part of their site assessment when they go there.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Bridget, how many wells do you typically do a year?
Honestly, maybe 2 to 3, if that. The ones that typically go in are for like a hog confinement or something like that. We've had a couple go in for houses, but the majority of Marion County is on rural water. And the most well work that we deal with is well testing. We have a grant that does well testing, and so that's the majority of our anything well related that we do.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-74.
I'll second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Now we have a discussion on fuel storage fiscal responsibility. So I'm going to tee this up, Tyler, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. I had a meeting with Jeff and Tyler, and who else, Jeff? Was it just 2 of us, or the 3 of us? During COVID, we did some, and Tyler and his group have done an excellent job in terms of forward contracting our fuel to save costs on potential market changes that might come 6 months, 8 months down the road. So his group does a phenomenal job. That's Mike, right, that does that?
Mike McMurray.
Mike McMurray, who does that? Does a great job with that.
Or perceived shortages.
Or shortages, that's exactly right. So we did this during COVID to take advantage of cheaper prices, but also because of the crisis situation, we weren't sure about supply, as Supervisor McCombs just pointed out. And so I had another meeting with Jeff and Tyler to talk about what might be coming over the next 12 to 18 months. As you know, oil just hit $82 a barrel yesterday. Every projection I've read is talking about $100 a barrel by wintertime. That's going to impact, of course, gasoline, heating oil, LP, all of those things. So we want to do our best to be good stewards. That's a large expense for Marion County, and if there are ways that we can forward contract and save some dollars in the long run, we should be thinking about that. So I asked Tyler to put together a presentation about our storage capacity, what we have, and logistics around that. So Tyler, I'm going to turn that over to you.
I mean, aside from that, I think there's been discussions just for fiscal responsibility across county departments about how do we save money regardless of any uncertainties.
Always a given.
So, yep. So, in the past, the road department has kind of been the manager of fuel. We got out of that business a number of years ago, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And, which was probably for the better at the time due to the complications of doing that. Now there's different processes and new technologies that hopefully we could take advantage of for the county. So what I've done is kind of laid out just an overview of fuel across the county, and some of the challenges, some of the benefits, some of the potential savings for that, and then I made a few recommendations for just our normal daily usage, but then also what could come as far as additional capacities as far as dealing with emergency situations or shortages or whatnot. So across all departments, I got this information from our records and my department, as well as the WEX information, and then talking with Steve Edwards as he does some bulk contracting as well. So there were a few discrepancies in there. I would say largely because of the way 2020 went. Fuel usage was either up or down for a few departments. Chris's department's doing different things. I would imagine that's part of the increase or decrease in yours, or increase. Senior nutrition, public health, I'm guessing some of that was pandemic related, but again, I don't know. But I thought those were big enough discrepancies, I called them out in the notes. But obviously the biggest users, Sheriff's Department and my department. Steve comes in close on third there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but you're about 60-40 on what you contract versus what you use the WEX card for. So we can come back to this if you want to see it later. So this table kind of shows the recent transactions that we've had through contracting, but also a summary of the WEX purchases over the last few years. I did not have detailed information prior to 2018, but I had some notes in my file because Jason and I talked about this a number of years ago. So for 17 and 18, I had the average savings for what our department had contracted versus what the Sheriff's Department was paying at the pump was about 30 cents per gallon at that time. So I don't have detailed information of what we were paying, but I just had a note that we were 30 cents below the WEX price. And that's fairly representative for 19 and 20. I will say 21 contract is probably somewhat of an anomaly because we contracted in May of 2020 for 18 months at an average of $1.60 per gallon, and we all know what fuel prices are doing today. So we took advantage of significantly low prices. So regardless, there's still potential savings. Overall, it averages out to about 33 cents per gallon for gasoline, less than WEX. So what we contract at the road department averages 33 cents per gallon less.
So Tyler, maybe you've got this on other slides. What's the, because as a government entity, we don't pay tax on fuel. So
we do pay tax on gas, but we get a tax refund that departments submit that the documentation to Danny.
Yeah, so we get it back, but we have to, it's like you have to pay it and then you have to get the data and then submit to the state to to get it collected back.
Okay, so it's a net, but it's a net,
Correct.
it nets out to zero.
Yeah.
What-
Now, on
what is-
diesel fuel, we do not pay tax up front.
Okay, so what is that, Jake? What does that work out on a per gallon basis?
I don't know.
Was it 42 cents? Something like that? I'm not sure.
I don't know per gallon, I'm sorry.
Okay. What I'm wondering, Tyler, is, and maybe you can answer it, that 40 cents we're saving, is that the tax?
No.
Or is it in addition to the
No,
tax?
because we're paying tax on both of those prices that you saw.
Okay,
And
perfect,
I confirmed that with Jake last
perfect,
week when we were having this discussion.
perfect, thank you.
So here are the different purchasing options. So another piece to this is my department's looking at expanding our facility out of Junction 92. So we need a different option for fuel as we're gonna vacate various sites. So we've been looking into different options for fuel, gas and diesel, regardless of these discussions, most recent discussions. And so as part of that, we looked at, can we contract or negotiate with WEX for lower price per gallon? Well, the answer is you can, but it's kind of through the vendor. So like Casey's, we could negotiate a potential lower price there, maybe 3 to 5 cents per gallon, using a WEX card or using their own card. But really, there's not much savings there, and those are short-term negotiations. The other option we looked at, and I think the sheriff's department has been taking advantage of this, is purchasing from the fuel station. I think AgriLand calls it the 24. This would be across from the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, where you pay at the pump. There's potential for 15 cents per gallon there, but you have to negotiate that. I think you guys are beyond that now, according to Troy. With our discussions with AgriLand, they did say we could contract fuel there. But the difference is where that fuel comes from. Would be out of the terminal in Des Moines, where the fuel I contract for my department comes out of the Knoxville depot south of town. So freight is a little bit different. So we would see, they couldn't tell us an exact number, but contract pricing at that station of theirs would be 5 to 25 cents per gallon higher than the averages that we contract currently. So then the last option is bulk contracting. In county-owned tanks, like I said earlier, 33 cents per gallon savings. And there's the option for potentially more savings, depending on how you take that fuel and how big your tanks are. So bulk storage options. So here's kind of where our department landed for our Junction 92 shop. We currently have a bulk diesel and bulk gasoline tank at the 3 main shops that we're going to consolidate into Junction 92. That'd be Pella, Central, and Clay. So we take gas and diesel all locations. So we're looking at consolidating gas and diesel both at Junction 92. What capacities do we need there, and how do we most efficiently take that fuel and take advantage of the transport loads and the lower price? So we need a bulk diesel tank to cover our highest monthly average, because that's usually in the winter, and we don't want to be short fuel in the winter time, and we don't want to be taking fuel every week. Gas, we need a minimum of 4,000 gallons for our department. At the LEC, we have different options. So in our discussions with AgriLand, we talked about servicing other departments at Junction 92 and what the size of the tanks would have to be in order to do that. And ultimately what I kind of landed on, and again, this is my recommendation, I pitched it to Troy and Jason and a few others, would be to establish a bulk tank at the LAC for convenience. As you saw, they were the largest user of gasoline, the sheriff's department was. And there's other departments strategically located that could take advantage of that as well. Not only the convenience, but also the savings. So options there would be a minimum of 6,000 gallon tank to service all departments. A 10,000 gallon tank would allow for transport loads and 7 cents additional savings per gallon. If we were just looking at servicing the sheriff's department there, 4,000 gallon would be the minimum, as they're averaging about 2,500 gallons per month. And your tank size, you can only fill it to 85%. So whatever gallons I have on the screen, you're only using 85% of that initially, and typically you do not want to run them dry. You want to leave a few hundred gallons in them. Jason and I have had the discussion about E85. They've been taking advantage of the lower priced E85 recently. That may or may not be an option. If they wanted to, we could definitely look at a bulk tank at the LAC if we went down that road for E85. The difference being it has only a 30-day shelf life, where regular unleaded is about 90 days. Also, you have to take a minimum of 1,000 gallons. That comes out of the depot in Des Moines. And you cannot split tanks, so you cannot get a delivery of E85 with unleaded. It has to come by itself. And also, you cannot split a tank at 10,000 gallons or less. So we could not have two types of fuel at the LAC until we went to a 12,000 or larger gallon tank.
What's the advantage of the E85 of lower cost per gallon?
Yeah,
It's a lower cost per gallon, but what we're still trying to figure out is what that difference of lower cost is to make it, I mean, A, we wanna help the farmers, but at what cost, is that difference? When it was $1 something, a difference in gallon, it was well worth it to do it, but you get less fuel economy using the E85. So now it was like 70 some cents difference. And my guys are like, I don't know if it really is cost effective, on the less fuel economy from what it was at that point. We'd have to put a lot more numbers to it. We've been trying to utilize it when it gets to $80, $90 difference, yeah, it makes sense. But when it's down to that 70 cents, is it worthwhile doing or not?
I think what they're seeing is pretty consistent with what the EPA has published through studies, that E85 is 27 to 33% less fuel efficient than unleaded. Just a couple more slides here. So for the road department, so this is a route we were going down regardless of any other discussions to consolidate in Junction 92. What we have come up with was we still need to maintain a bulk gasoline tank at our own facility. It's definitely the cheapest option for us. It's obviously most convenient. And diesel, there's definitely no doubt we have to have our own diesel. We're fueling multiple times a day, sometimes during a storm, out of that tank in one piece of equipment. So maintaining status quo, which would be consolidation of our 3 shops, and it would require 12,000 gallons of diesel, 4,000 of gas, and we would go to a much needed new car control system, fuel management system. Instead of pencil and paper and Excel, we would go to Fuel Master, and I'm sure my staff is going to love it. So the savings for us is actually fairly large to do this, and the system pays for itself in about 9 years because we currently can't take bulk delivery of gasoline at any of our locations. Excuse, not bulk, but transport loads and take advantage of that 7 cents per gallon. But at the new facility, our average diesel and gas usage would allow us to take a split transport load, so we could take 5,000 or 6,000 gallons of diesel and 1,000 or 2,000 gallons of gas every month or every 5 or 6 weeks, and take advantage of 7 cents on both. So for gasoline alone, that's just under $1,200 for gas, and for diesel, we currently only take about 30% of our diesel at those 3 shops in a transport load. So the other 60% would save us about $6,000 per year in delivery fees. And at our current location, we have underground storage tanks, which right now we pay about $3,200 a year in inspections fees for testing, leak testing, and insurance. Next year, the fees are nearly doubling for that. And we have seen this over the last few years in increase in cost. So $6,700 a year, and we had confirmed with Agriland that those fees basically go away when you go to an above ground tank, which is what we were proposing at the new site. Yeah. The one additional savings that's not quantifiable would be the deadheading or right now, they're driving back and forth from our clay shop, pellet shop to central shop to pick up parts for vehicles, service vehicles, pick up administrative paperwork, or my staff delivering paperwork and having people sign things, that sort of thing. So consolidating those shops definitely would save us on fuel, both gas and diesel. We just don't know what that is yet. And that entire system is $124,000 in today's dollars, subject to change probably tomorrow. And it has a 9-year payoff.
Okay.
So for the LEC, potential sheriff's department and or other department storage options, my recommendation would be a 6,000 gallon tank at $73,000. That does not include the Fuel Master, which would be in the $9,000 to $14,000 range, depending on what we got. If they wanted to use that system to manage, which is shown there at the bottom. So the savings there is huge, and that's using the averages. My disclaimer here is that, you know, there could be a year when we get burnt on our contracts, and I've been here 8 years now, and we've been burnt occasionally, but to date, you know, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, we're contracting fuel significantly lower and in that 30 cents per gallon cheaper range. So the 6,000 gallon tank would be about a 5 to 6 year payoff, depending on your options. 10,000 gallon would allow you to take a tank transport load. So there's some additional savings there, but obviously the tank itself costs more up front. And it's about the same payoff. And then the last option would be for the sheriff's department only. They would require a 4,000 gallon tank, and it'd be 6.5 to 7.5 years, depending on your options.
The first two options, Tyler, are you looking at the other departments fueling up out there then?
Yeah, so we typically contract about 90% of what our usage is. And that's kind of how I sized these tanks based on the averages I showed you in that very first table for other departments. So that's what, yes, the first two options would be for departments, including Steve, and I did not include Steve's bulk gallons, only what he currently uses on WEX, and not, there is room to do either or. Okay. So I did a check. So Steve, if Steve wanted to purchase all his gasoline or go through the bulk tank at the LEC, that is an option. Again, these averages are based on.
Steve would be the one that would be probably, it would be more of a drive for him than anybody else.
We've got, our bulk tanks are 300 gallon bulk tanks.
Steve, you gotta use the mic. They can't hear you.
Our tanks are 300 gallons at all three parks, both 300 for diesel and 300 for gas. And then the rest of us just go use our WEX card.
Okay, so you're gonna maintain your tank.
Yeah, I think we need to do that just for the mowers and the different trucks and things like that.
That's my point.
It'd be tough to drive out to the LEC, but the Rangers and for patrolling, all the other stuff, to go out to the LEC.
Okay.
And again, I have not had detailed discussions with individual departments other than Jason about how they use fuel, where they're purchasing. What I did not look at the WEX, although I had the information on where they're purchasing fuel with the WEX card. I assumed it was largely in Marion County, in Knoxville. So, you know, if there's a department that's driving to Omaha every week and they're always purchasing fuel out there, you know, that's something I don't know.
Well, that's something you can't control. I mean.
So yeah, my assumption was they're fueling in Marion County.
The initial fuel up would be probably in Marion County, but obviously, even in transports, you're going to wind up fueling someplace else.
Yeah, and WEX wouldn't go away, and that's actually on this slide. Even for my department, you know, when we purchase a piece of equipment, we just drove to Sioux City and had to fuel this week in a semi and through a WEX card. So just a couple more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick ones here. So the benefits and considerations. There's a lot to digest here that we haven't even talked about yet, but There's less risk during periods of shortage, and that's one thing that we would gain an advantage on over even the 24 of Agriland Station is, the public's using out of that tank as well. Even though we have fuel contracted, that doesn't mean everything in that tank is ours.
Right.
When we go there to fuel. Separate facilities in the event of vandalism or failure. That's the proposal of having a tank at 2 locations, large gas tanks. Additional emergency storage from my vacated central shop. So there's potential there that we can work into an agreement in the future with whoever, conservation maybe, about that. Those 2 tanks are still there. They're 12,000 gallons each at our current facility. Convenient location for about 80% of the users. So, basically outside of Steve's department, a lot of our county departments are either here that would be using fuel or at the LEC. So Chris's department kind of housed out of here, Sheriff's Department, the sign truck, Jeff, senior nutrition and public health, I think, were the largest users away from this side of town. There would be additional administrative work for the road use tax. Talking with Jake and Danny, right now it's fairly simple. She gets a report from Tammy and one from Wex, and it's a couple reports. This would complicate things a little bit more. Things would be coming in from different directions. We'd still have Wex to deal with. It's not that it's not doable, it's just there's a little more work there, because right now we're basically running 2 systems and that's it. There could possibly be additional work depending on how the board and department heads wanted to proceed with purchasing. So right now, I contract fuel for my department pays for it, we get the tax refund, that's it. When everybody's contracting purchasing out of 1 tank or possibly 2, there's some details that would have to be worked out there. Some of that could possibly be handled by the Fuel Master software program. Agriland is getting back to me on what capabilities it has on that end, but I do know it has very high reviews from other counties who use Fuel Master for managing multiple departments. So we don't know what all those challenges are just yet. Again, Wex wouldn't go away. There's always risk in contracting, like I said earlier. We could get burned on it. Mike has done a really good job, in my tenure here in contracting fuel, and I feel like we're always, on average, we're ahead of the game. And then how is budgeting, contracting, and savings realized? Yes, there's potential for savings countywide here, but how do each individual department, how do they receive those savings, or how do they budget, or how do they contract? Those are all things that would have to be worked out. So that's a lot of information. We've been researching this for about 6 months, and then after our conversation, I think there's some good options here for the county as a whole. Are there some challenges? Yes, but I guess I'm happy to answer any questions. I know more about fuel than I want to.
Tyler, I forgot to ask during our discussions on it, but the tanker fuel price, I think when we originally talked about that, obviously it's better, on that tanker fuel, but we were kind of looking at it, or I guess I was looking at it, you have a tanker fuel price, we have a tanker fuel price. Is there a way to just Marion County to share when we talk about that tanker fuel price and the amount of those loads, if it was just Marion County versus Marion County Roads or Marion County Sheriff's Office, can they split those tanker loads just as Marion County?
Yep. So I had that discussion with them yesterday. We did not think so, but then yesterday there is the potential for that. They don't like to do that.
Right.
Or when I told them the proximity of the 2 locations.
For that double stop.
There is the possibility there.
That would even be more savings.
The difference being, we were gonna coordinate our diesel with gas deliveries, and it was gonna work out pretty good with our averages. Not saying that would always be the case, and we may have more fuel savings than what we realize. I got people driving from Tracy and Pella to Central all the time, picking up parts and materials. When we're centralized, we may have a lot more fuel savings than we know. But yes, there may be an additional fee, but I think it was pretty low. But that is an option, possibly. You're saying take a semi-load and split it between two locations, yeah.
I'm all for this on whatever the board of supervisors. I mean, when Tyler and I have talked about for the last couple of years, even the amount of savings, I mean, that 10 to 15,000 gallons that you guys purchased, that we've sent guys out to the county road department, it's been a significant savings for us. When we contracted through Agriland, it saved us money there on different things. So doing something like this, obviously Tyler deals with the fuel side of it a lot more in the tank aspect, but even on ours, on where we've strategically got fuel, has saved us money.
I mean, a good example would be, had the LEC had its own tank, and Mike looks down through the prices, he gets this everyday price sheet from Agriland. He said, all right, we want to contract 6 months, and that's 2 tanker deliveries for us and 1 for the sheriff's office, and he makes a phone call, they send us a contract, they send him a contract. Had that been happening, there was opportunity for $10,000 a year just for his department.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer to me that it's gonna save money. It's just the logistics of it and the initial cost.
Yeah, and there's a lot more here to work out than I probably even detailed. You know, as I started talking with Jake and Danny this week, you know, there's a lot of administrative things that would have to be worked out because, you know, secondary roads funds are a little touchy per Iowa code on things coming and going from that fund. Other departments, EMA is funded differently than public health. Now, are there some general fund departments? Sure, but there's a lot of details and administrative.
So let's talk for a minute just about the startup costs or the infrastructure cost to do this. One of my reasons for talking with Tyler and kind of putting him on this to increase his knowledge of fuel, because I wanted to make sure that Tyler had that, was that we would use ARPA money.
That was gonna be.
So this would be our first ARPA expenditure that we could actually talk about. When we're talking about gasoline, infrastructure, these types of things, I think they fit within the context of the intent. And there's year-over-year savings to the taxpayer.
You know, it's to me, it's so confusing.
Those guidelines, yeah.
The money all comes out of the same pot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to get it down to the nuts and bolts of it, all comes out of the same pot. It's just how you split it up when you budget it between departments, it gets confusing.
Sure. But what that does for us is at least the infrastructure to put this type of system in, the fuel master system, the tanks, however we want to structure it operationally, Tyler, whether it's more centralized, less centralized, we can work out that. To me, that's the detail you would just work out in the process. The administrative linkages, what does the new fuel master system do for the auditor's office? Does it do anything? Those types of things we can talk about. But it's very clear that the savings is real. And securing supply.
Yeah, correct.
And we can't minimize that. I think what we see, if you're just watching the news in the current environment, if we get back to where we're pumping oil out of North Dakota and gas prices go down, we can be flexible and go back to buying it at the pump if that saves us money. But at the same time, we have an option for when we get to these types of scenarios where it's clear the savings is material if we can bulk order fuel.
To me, it's a win-win. You're saving money buying in bulk. You're also minimizing your risk of fuel shortage.
Yeah.
In an emergency situation.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a win-win.
I mean, we're all old enough, or most of us are old enough. Maybe there's some people that aren't to remember the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you were lining up for gas and going by your license plate number or whatever. And now we're asking the Arab states to please pump more oil again because we'd like a cheaper price. I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. And we have to make sure that our emergency vehicles and our road department and our other county offices, they can get out and serve the public. We have to make sure that is there. And fuel is it's a base basic commodity for us in that regard.
I do have to pose a question. With where the administration is going, meaning not ours, but the federal government, is the electric part of things going to have to be playing into this in the future? And not that I'm for that, you know, and not that I'm all against it. I'm just saying, is that something that we need to think about? And then also the tank size. Let's say your size, but like with Jason, and then if you've got facilities and you've got other departments, would it be beneficial to go bigger at Jason's?
The cost goes up quite a bit. The cost on all these tanks was higher than I had anticipated anyway, but the cost goes up quite a bit between, I think I was proposing a 10,000 was the largest one at LAC to a 12.
Because I'm thinking
Then you have to look at
85%.
how much you're using,
Mm-hmm.
because it has a shelf life.
Yep.
And that's why, you know, in times of shortage, you're eliminating some risk there, but it's still fairly short-lived because you just can't store enough. You know, you can store enough to get you through a couple of months, and your services would change in a time like that.
But our when we're talking shortages, Keisha, our emergency fuel supply would be those underground tanks. In that regard, then.
Yeah. I think it would be in our best interest to negotiate and/or, you know, have some type of an agreement there in the future with whoever that is.
So whatever we end up doing with that area and working with Steve and the conservation department, I think we've got to consider maintaining something.
But then your shelf life comes into play.
Right.
Sure.
So the tanks themselves, when they're above ground like that, do they last, you know?
Yeah, so they're a dual wall tank, so they don't even actually, our current tanks are single wall. Our above ground tanks at various shops, they have concrete or steel containment structures around them. These do not require any type of containment other than the dual wall tank itself.
Okay.
The prices are turnkey. That is, basically we're contracting with them to install them, concrete pad, protection for the pumps, bollards, all that. These are complete turnkey systems.
So, and then I'm going to address your EV question. Can't plan for it.
Okay.
We got several reasons for that. Number one, think about this. I'll just use the analogy. We're still wrestling with rural broadband. What's it going to take to put in charging stations in rural Iowa? EVs?
I don't disagree. I just think that they don't always, the feds don't always think about rural America either. So
what I'm saying is we won't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying we'll be on gas. Everybody else in the urban areas will be on EV.
Unless it's shortage and they short us.
And then it'll be, we wish we had fuel.
I think partly, I'm sorry, Keisha, I think we've looked at, or I have looked at electric vehicle sides of it, but just right now, the technology, even for the amount of miles you can go,
Right.
in emergency situations and everything, is if you have a parking, complaint vehicle that you drive around in, but for emergency response, which most of this we're talking about, is gonna be a ways down the road before technology would allow that to happen.
Well, I'd hope for the taxpayers, they want your service. I'd hope that they would not, I got to stop to charge up, before I can get there. But
well, every paper I've read on it, it's a 10-year implementation, and that's just for passenger automobiles.
Okay.
And that's just in urban areas.
And why I say this is I know companies that are looking at it. And this is utility companies that are looking at that's what they're going to. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how you're going to service. So.
Sure.
And to that point, the DOT is already having that discussion on road use tax and the diminishing return on that as a tax.
Mm-hmm.
And if Kelly's still on, that's something we're going to have to think about here in the upcoming years.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought you were going to ask about flying cars.
Jetsons.
That'll be next.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
Good discussion though.
So I think with this, Tyler, kind of our next steps are, first of all, on the infrastructure, on putting something like this in, we have our ARPA meeting this afternoon to talk about starting to divvy up the bucket of dollars and how we want to distribute those things. I think this gets on the list as one of those items that we want to consider, and probably one of the higher priority items, number one. As far as how we go about implementing this board, I'd like you to take a couple of weeks and think about it, how to put this together, look at Tyler's proposal. Let's refine it if we need to, sharpen our pencils a little bit, talking about how we want to administer that. And then next meeting or meeting after, let's come up with some decisions on how we want to do that.
I'm in favor of it, if, you know, if the logistics don't become overbearing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
also
I think-
for Jake and Danny, I mean, you know, I think
That's what I
it's,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah, so let's,
Tyler can take care of it.
let's think, let's give it some thought. Now, you've heard the proposal from Tyler, the outline, and how we would put in the infrastructure costs. Give that some thought. Next meeting or the meeting afterwards, we'll make some choices on how we want to get this done.
Okay.
Sound fair?
Thank you for the
Yeah, and if
presentation.
any of the department heads that are users there have questions,
Yep.
let me know.
Tyler is now the fuel expert.
You know, I'd have
Fuels
to,
are,
I'd have to, you know, I'd have to reiterate that the WEX card is not gonna go away. I mean,
No.
you gotta have that.
All right. Very good. Tyler, thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it very much and your work on that. I would entertain a motion to close discussion.
Make motion, we close discussion.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. Next, we have an appointment, Mid-Iowa Development Fund, Board of Directors. Keisha.
I was contacted by Rick Hunsacker in regarding this. My understanding, this has been a board that has not necessarily been active. He reached out asking if we would have a recommendation. This is not a 2080, but it is a board that meets. It provides low interest loans to businesses who create jobs in central Iowa. And I had reached out and talked to Carla to see if possibly she would be interested. And Carla, you did speak with Rick, is my understanding?
Yes.
So, okay. So Carla spoke with Rick, is willing to, has verbally said she'd be willing. If the board would accept that, I would be willing to make the motion of appointing Carla. You guys
Just
have
a
any
point of
questions?
clarification, it is not an appointment, it is a recommendation. The actual Mid-Iowa Development Fund Board is the one
Oh,
who
it
makes.
is recommendation is important. Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this board makes the final decisions on who gets on, right? Okay. All right. Good. How much money are we talking about, guys? What do they administer?
It varies, right now they've got a couple different funds that they've gotten through, of course, all this with COVID. I couldn't tell you, I've got it back at the office, I couldn't tell, or back at the desk, but it's been mostly smaller loans. I would say a lot of working capital revolving loan funds right now is what they're looking at. They have done some capital, there's a little bit more, what should I say, red tape when they're making capital revolving loan funds versus, or infrastructure revolving loan funds versus capital. But they have done several, most of their loans, I think, like the one they're looking at right now is about 150,000 that they're looking at for working capital. So in that kind of range, they're not huge multi-million dollar loans. These are more for your small businesses than they are for like a big Amazon or that kind of thing. They're small business kind of revolving loan funds.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions, discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion recommending Carla to the Mid-Iowa Development Fund as a potential board member.
So moved.
I'll second.
McCombs,
Thank you, Carla. Second, or aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, VA, Development Project Update, or Demolition Project Update. Mr. Nesby.
It's still there.
It's still there, but less of it.
Actually, if you've driven by West Pleasant, north side, you'll notice building 27 and 28 are officially missing. We're still trying to locate them, but they are gone. really, things are going well. You know, the rain was much needed, really settled a lot of the dust. We've taken some time to clean up some of the dead trees that in the event of a storm coming into, you know, potential fall weather, wouldn't hurt private property nor the fence we put up. So things are going really well. As a public service announcement, I know the city of Knoxville is going to publish this, but the 18th, which is next Monday, West Pleasant Street will be closed for upwards of 5 days. So we can begin the removal process of the tunnel that goes under from the north side to the south side, and then have that repaved back. So, yeah, Wednesday or Monday through estimated right now Thursday of next week, beginning on the 18th, West Pleasant will be closed.
Okay.
Any questions?
Good. Steve, Keisha?
Yeah, I think we'll get questions once, since the road is closed. Are they looking at, you know, the doctor's homes and the quarters there? That's still going to be later, or is that going to be?
Yeah, that'll still be later.
Okay.
So right now, this is just to remove the tunnel system.
Okay.
Everybody has seen over the years, there's a dip in the road there. That's just an unstable tunnel that needs to be removed and then needs to be, you know, brought back up to grade and poured back properly. That has to be done in this early stage, because as we move forward, we're also trying to get all that underground system out all at one time. So now is just perfect time to get it knocked out. The officers' quarters are still docketed somewhere, probably spring of next year.
Okay.
Depends on what we run into. You know, we've, you know, run into hidden asbestos in places that no asbestos expert would look for it. Places that anybody with a brain wouldn't look for it. So, you know, we've run into some of that stuff. It's slowed up process in some of the bigger buildings. So I couldn't tell you we don't hit something like that and then decide to keep momentum going forward and kick to the south side of the road and start taking those out. But initially, we plan towards the end of the project that we tackle the south side.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Good. Steve?
No, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, thank you
Sweet.
very much. Entertain a motion to close discussion.
Motion to close discussion.
Second?
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
All right, very good. Next, we have 2021 final equalization orders. This is an update on the notifications and such with that. Jake, is that you?
It sure can be. I'm not sure. Kelly was at a meeting today, but was gonna maybe try and be on, so do you guys know if Kelly's on or not? This is okay. So I'm gonna pinch hit a little bit if that's all right.
That's fine.
There's been full communication over these last few weeks, so just a very brief overview is a equalization. I'm gonna go back to the very beginning of all of our properties in Marion County are valued and we received notices in March of 2021 of those values, residential, commercial, those types of things. Once that's done and the abstracts are finalized by the assessor's office, the state then goes through and looks at statewide with calculations that are just beyond what we do or I do, and then they come back with recommended equalization orders for each county in the fall of each year. There was a lot of equalization around the state this year, like reduction in ag land values or things like that. Marion County received a equalization notice from the Department of Revenue regarding residential parcels only on those January 1, 2021 values, the mandated 6% increase across the board of residential value. So what, in essence, that means is the certified values of January 1, 2021 by the Marion County, values that we all saw on our assessment notices in March are being increased by 6% across the board. Those will be used for taxes and for budgeting for the 22-23 tax collection years. So a new code that was created, notices are put out. We have notice of this on our website, things of those nature. The assessor's office did protest, or appealed the decision. It's a calculation in essence where it's all based on sale prices and what's going on in the state, and there's can have a whole lot of discussions about the whole process. But the things that we have to follow are, it's really difficult to keep up with sale prices in Marion County right now. And so, so the state equalized residential value by 6%, but the intent is to have assessments within 5% of sale price. So that was ordered. So what comes next is a notice, public notice of that, and then recent legislation change was that every property in Marion County that has residential class value on it needs to receive notice, and that needs to come out of the auditor's office, not the assessor's office. So with our software, postcards were generated. There's an example of one on the screen there. It doesn't actually have a parcel, but everyone should be getting these. These were sent to deed holders as well as all the mail to addresses, so some people may get duplicates. We may get some, we have a lot of parcels that taxes and such, it's the same file that for taxes are sent to mailing addresses or mail people as opposed to the deed holder itself. So these postcards will have the notice, it will have your parcel number on it, legal description and the class. Those are all blank there, but you can see the screen. The current value would be the equalized value, the value that we use when taxable values are created this winter for use in 2022-23. The prior value is not the 2020 value, it's the 2021 value that it was when you got your assessment in March.
So it's additive to that.
It's an additive to that. Thank you. So, yeah, if you look on Beacon or whatever, and look at the columns with the values and the taxes, the prior value is not the 2020 value that we'll see. It is the initial 2020 value.
This gets us up to about 100%, Jake?
According to the state, and that's kind of outside my bit.
Which means we were at 94, we were 1% below their threshold, so they raised us 6%.
I believe so.
Because that makes sense.
Missed it by 1%.
You know me on this. This is
I know.
very hard for me
I know.
to sit here and be cordial right now.
So this
Not
is,
to you, Jake. This
this
is
is
you.
across
This is
the
not
board,
you,
right?
yeah.
I'm sorry, Steve.
So this is 6% across the board.
Yeah, it's a 6% countywide, so you can go on,
But
you can
it's-
see the notices everywhere.
Residential.
Sorry, yes, this is a
Residential.
residential class
Yeah.
only, this is not
Yeah.
commercial, not
I
industrial,
know.
not multi-res.
So somebody's taxes are going up 6%, or not the taxes, but the assessed value is going up 6% because somebody's overpaying for a piece of property someplace else.
Values are gonna go up 6% from the previous.
I got your back.
Thanks.
Now you know why Kelly had a meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, well, basically that's the truth.
So now, all the taxing entities will take, it's the same process every year, we have the values. Marion County is just, they've done a great job of not getting equalized notices.
But I agree with Mark, we missed it by 1% and they raised it 6%.
That's correct. What other questions?
Jake, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you off the hook right now.
Yeah.
Because it's not your deal. You're just doing the administrative
No,
part of this.
no,
Appreciate it.
And I have
But
spoke,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And now, so taxing authorities do have the ability to use the value in setting future budgets with the restrictions that we discuss every year, that as well.
Yeah, but to Supervisor McComb's point,
Yeah.
if
We gotta make up for,
if you have federal government policy that drives interest rates into abnormally low bands like we currently have, people will throw cash at every property they can buy, and that's what's happening. So they're only overpaying to the extent that the dollar's being devalued. That's what's going on. If the dollar devalues at an average of 15 to 23%, I'm going to bet average property values increased in Marion County by about 15 to 23%. So people think you're making money, you're not. And that's federal policy that's driving this. The state side is they calculate it based on last year's sales. So if you get a year like this, or a couple of years where you've got abnormally large amounts of money chasing after these properties, it raises everything. We're a small county. So you get some of these places like Melcher or Pleasantville that maybe have 5, 6 sales, it can distort their entire tax base.
Yep.
County rates, the rates for our general fund, have not changed in a decade or more. This
Yeah,
is
20
being,
years.
this is being driven by the state of Iowa and the federal government. I don't care what your state reps and Walt Rogers at Iowans for Tax Relief says. So,
Yeah, so we were, like you said, 1 percentage point under, so at what, 94? So we're getting equalized to 100. Now the range can be 95 to 105. So if we were over the 105, it would also equalize us too. So it's a big brother look over our shoulder type situation, but on the other hand, we get our hands slapped instead of saying, hey, why don't you bump it up 1%? It's now 6%.
well, we try to keep it at the low end of the range to
That's
give our
right.
taxpayers
Yeah,
the lowest rate they can get. That's what Kelly has done, and she's done a great job, her and her staff. And the state comes in and says, well, we don't like that. You have to go up 6% because we need to pay for other things in the state of Iowa. This isn't about Marion County, folks.
right, that's exactly, yeah.
This is about Polk County and Johnson County. This is about other counties having high values. Anyway.
We're not excited about this. I'm not excited about
Not
this.
excited is an understatement.
I do want to bring up one more point, just on the notice. This does open up a protest period as well, just to make sure the public understands that
Is it on the postcard, Jay?
it is on the postcard. There's a protest period from all the way through October 31. The form is available on the county website. And the protest is just like any other normal evaluation process. The difference with that, and it's a paper form you can fill out, go through that process. The protest for this is just for the difference in the equalized value. So it does not affect the initial 2020 value that the protest period was earlier. It's for the equalized value only.
So you can argue over the 6.
Yeah. It's an argue over the 6, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But it is open and available through October 31 with forms available on the county website.
They have to mail it to you, not the Department of Revenue, right?
Mail it to the county.
Jason?
What about on new construction? I mean, will that
Mike.
be included, or is it only for?
It will be.
Jason, you need a
I
mic.
think the question was on if it's on new construction, whatever your residential class 2021 initial value was from January 1 values are being increased to 6%. So I don't know whatever it was.
Yeah. All right. Jake, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake.
And I
Good job.
And the assessor's office.
And I think we all, I mean, as a board and as myself, I want transparency. I think it's important to know that, just to make sure the citizens of Marion County understand that this is what's happened. So, thank you, Jake.
Talk to your state legislators.
Yes.
That's what we want done.
They need to hear from the people. They can't just hear from us.
I'm trying really hard.
No,
I
that's
think
the
I'm
truth, because I've reached out to them. I've talked to all
I'm
of
doing a
them.
good job.
But until you guys make it a mandatory, an item that you want addressed, nothing's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, folks, and this is for the public, you get property taxes in Iowa, income taxes. Property taxes are the only means with which local government can function. Right, Jake?
Correct.
So your
Besides
law
gas
enforcement,
tax.
besides gas tax, your law enforcement, your road department, that's how we function. And I think overall, I think our folks have done a pretty good job managing the overall budget of this county when you look at increases across the board. We don't increase much more than 2% a year. That's pretty good. That's not the state of Iowa, which goes up a tad bit higher. But they get the advantage of income tax. All right. Enough of that before I blow my stack. Let's close discussion on this item.
Make motion to close discussion.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye. Deep breath. Updates. Mr. McCombs.
I'm good.
This is John.
I really don't have anything, other than I am excited. I'm gonna go with Chris today to go visit the VA. So thank you, Chris, for your willingness to do that. So.
I think I'm done. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'm moving adjourn.
I'll second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye,
John.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Aye. Before I